Welcome to Shoot Like a Girl, a podcast featuring interviews with extraordinary military women from around the world who push their limits on and off duty. I'm your host, Kate Stewart, and this is episode number 1. Today's guest is able Seaman Yvette Yong. She has been a naval communicator in the Canadian Forces Naval Reserve since 2010, and she is an extremely accomplished Taekwondo athlete. She won gold at the 2018 Pan American Taekwondo Championship and basically did a clean sweep of all the military awards that year. She was named the 2018 CISM Female Athlete of the Year, as well as the Canadian Forces and Royal Canadian Navy Female Athlete of the Year. This past October, she won a silver medal at the World Military Games in Wuhan, China.
Steady, steady, nice and steady. Light, hill, cover. I'm a steamroller, baby.
I'm a steamroller, baby.
Just a rolling down the line.
Just a rolling down the line.
I'm a steamroller, baby.
I'm a steamroller, baby.
Just a rolling down the line.
Just a rolling down the line.
So you better get out of my way now.
So you better get out of my way now.
Or I roll all over you.
Before I roll all over you.
Welcome, Yvette, to the podcast. I know you're super busy these days, so thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to do this.
Thank you so much for having me as a first guest. I'm super flattered, and I hope this podcast will go well.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to get some Canadian Navy representation in there to start with. So obviously these days, everything is very different, and I see that you've been doing a lot of stuff on Zoom lately, like teaching Taekwondo and personal training.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually do run a kids program at the fitness studio that I work at called Move Fitness. I run a Taekwondo program with kids and also an athletics program. So, we do it 3 days a week with these kids. It's good for them to have a little bit of exercise every day. But yeah, so I try to keep it fun, exciting, and give them a little movement every day.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the one thing during this pandemic that has sort of taken off a little bit more is the whole fitness and online workout, because a lot of people just don't have anything else to do and I want to pass the time. So I see a lot of gyms doing online classes.
Yeah. It's actually like a blessing in disguise too, so people are getting more, exposed to the fitness industry and the health and wellness kind of industry. So, that's a good thing we can take away from this.
Yeah, for sure. So hopefully they keep it up after everything opens again and keep going with that healthy lifestyle. So why don't you tell us how you grew up? Like, where did you grow up? How old were you when you got into Taekwondo and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I grew up in BC, in British Columbia, in a city called Port Coquitlam. My parents were they were originally from Malaysia, and they immigrated to Canada before I was born. So I was born in Canada. So I was 9 years old when I started Taekwondo. It was actually a birthday present because my father was a kung fu instructor back in Malaysia, and when they immigrated to Canada, he stopped practicing. So, and also my mom was a track and field athlete back in Malaysia as well.
Oh wow!
So yeah.
Okay, so you have a very athletic family.
I do, but I have to say that I think I took all of that from my sisters. I have 2 sisters. I'm the only one that's like super athletic, and so I really wanted to follow my father's footsteps and join Kung Fu, but all the schools were super far from us, and we came across a Taekwondo academy near our house, and I joined as a birthday present. So it was probably the best birthday gift I've ever gotten in.
So From a young age, was it kind of clear that you had this exceptional ability, or what was it like for you starting out?
Yeah, no, when I was young, I was full of energy. Like my poor parents. I loved all different types of sports. I loved track and field. I loved to play tennis. I loved soccer. I loved everything, right? So, and, naturally, I wanted to be like my dad and, follow in his footsteps. So, any martial arts would have done great for me, but it just so happened to be Taekwondo.
Okay, awesome. And how long were you training before you started competing and really seeing success in competitions?
Right. I think the first, you know what, I was 9 years old when I started, and the first competition that I fought in, I still have that medal, and I still remember that day. It was this. I actually thought I won the world championship. The master that held the competition called it the World DT11 Championships because he was a world champion. So he called it that. And I actually won gold in that competition. I was 9 years old and I was like a yellow belt, which means that I was, 3 months into training Taekwondo. And I won my first competition. And, ever since I first stepped foot on those mats in that school, I have loved that Taekwondo.
So you really got a taste for like your first win, and then that motivated you to like keep pushing. Like, I want more of this.
Yeah, and that was 21 years ago. So if you do the math, I'm 30 years old now.
Yeah, that's quite a long time. And then from there, so did you move to Toronto to go to school?
It was actually to have better training.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was training in Vancouver, but naturally, so I was 12 years old when I started my first nationals, and then that was junior nationals, and then I competed a few years, and then I was on the senior national team at 16 years old. So that was like I had in between kind of thing. So we had junior nationals from 14 to 18 years old, and then in between there's from 16 you can start competing in seniors. So I started winning at 16, and I'm still on the national team, so it was from 16 till now. So yeah, like when you're training Taekwondo, like naturally your team kind of like stops training. I kept training from 9 until, let's see, when I moved to Toronto, until 23 years old. So I had a big team then, but people moved on with their lives, and so I didn't have a big team anymore. So
right.
I joined the military when I was 20 years old. So it was 2010, and the master that was running the program actually lived in Toronto. So sometimes I would fly to Toronto and train with them a few weeks before a competition because I didn't have many people to train with in Vancouver. So, I decided to make that move, and I had a lot of friends in Toronto as well because of all the competitions and nationals and senior national team with Canada. A lot of them were from Toronto, so I knew a lot of people there already.
Okay, so that must have made the transition a little easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, they were very helpful. They were very supportive, and the master here in Toronto, I still train under him right now. He let me stay with him for a little while and train with him, and I moved here in 2013. So I was 23, and I've been here ever since.
And so one of the questions that I'm always curious about is how did you find out about the Navy? Was this like you joined for Taekwondo specifically, or did you join and then find out that that was an option within the military?
Yeah, so when people are not educated or don't know about the military, we think, okay, like first person that says military, we think, oh my gosh, we have to go to war, we have to, like that's
yeah,
people
exactly.
who are, yeah, exactly, right? So we were uneducated about that, but it was actually, believe it or not, the CF, one of the members, it was actually Natalie Bergensen. She's a very decorated national team athlete, and she actually approached my mom at a competition because she's seen me a few years competing, and she talked to my mom about the military, and what a great tactic, talking to your mom.
Yeah, that's the way to go, right?
Yeah, you can never say no to mom, right? So that was a great tactic from her. But she really educated my mom about the military and all about that. So and it was a good thing to talk to my mom first, because talking to me like a young athlete, we don't really know much, right? So adult to adult, she talked to her and then got her lots of information, and then she talked to me about it, and then at first I was like hesitant, oh my gosh, but it was a really great experience. She told me all about it. She told me that it would be a great thing to join and give back to our country, because my parents are immigrants, and they came to this country, and Canada welcomed them with open arms, and it was a great way to say thank you and give back to our country. So and I completely agree with that. So I'm like, you know what, let's do it. Let's join and let's see what this is all about, right?
Yeah, I actually hear the same thing a lot. When I was at York, a lot of the members there are like first generation Canadian, and they say the same thing. Like their families were immigrants, and this is, as soon as they could, they joined the military to help give back. And I think that's really awesome. And I think that more young people should see that as an option. Like for myself, I was taking a civilian dive course, and my instructor was a Navy diver. So I came home and told my mom I was going to join the Navy as a diver. And we were in Afghanistan at the time, and she's just like, in her mind, I'm going over to Afghanistan with a gun. I'm like, no, that's not how the Navy works. But, and even for me growing up in Halifax, I didn't have any exposure to the military. Like I didn't know what it was all about, or like all these different little opportunities with sport and other things within the military. So.
Well, fun fact, I did my BMQ in Halifax.
Oh, did you? Where, just at STAD, or?
Gosh, what was the
or like
Shearwater?
Oh, Shearwater. Oh, okay, that's really interesting.
I actually did the last Reg Force one.
Okay, yeah, I think I remember when that was going on there. I did mine in Borden, so when I did it, it was like 10 weeks. Is that kind of similar?
I did. Yeah, I think it was two months and a bit.
Yeah, because now they do it where a lot of it is in units.
Yeah, it's completely different.
In the evening and weekends, and then they just go to the field for a couple of weeks.
Man, I know. Like I just like, oh man, like it was such a totally different experience, and I wish that people like now, like the reserve force who are doing the BMQ right now, could really experience that. Because I loved that experience.
Yeah, you get so close to everyone, and like we got all of our phones taken away for the first 4 weeks. So it's like you have nothing to do, but you get to know these people more than people you have known for years, because you're just with them like 24/7.
Yeah, so, they were like family.
Yeah.
We had this like incredible bond. Like these guys are friends forever.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think that a lot of civilians don't really understand about the military, because it's so different than anything you would do sort of civilian side most of the time. But like sleeping in these close quarters and kind of going through the same like crap, and then you can complain together. I think that's one of the best ways to bond, is shared suffering.
When you go through hardship together, that's definitely something to bond to.
Did you find like what was the hardest part of BMQ for you? Probably not anything physical.
Well, no, I love being, challenged. I loved it. The hardest thing with BMQ is, I think it was trying to get people to, not give up. Like a lot of, I think that's a part of me that, the athlete part of me that really, shined through the whole time. Like I really tried to get everybody to, not give up, to keep trying to push past their limits. Because in sport, in Taekwondo, like I know what that feels like. And, in training, we have intense training. And when we have to train for something, like we don't want to do it. It's so hard. We're dying, we're gasping for air. We almost want to throw up. And that's kind of the same mentality that we have in the military, right? And, to have that experience already, it was like I was thankful that I had that experience, and that I could really, encourage my friends and the people there to not give up.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of the same qualities and like that discipline that a high level athlete would have transfers over really well to the military. And then at the same time, some of the things that you learn in the military could transfer over really well to sport or adventure, or any sort of, people going on expeditions and things like that. A lot of times you see that they have some sort of military background, and that's that idea that you're pushing yourself, you sometimes you don't want to do it, but you just get that done. So when you're like on a course or sailing, how do you stay in shape?
Man, that's got to be one of the hardest things that anyone has to go through. Because when you're sailing, especially with our shifts on ship, you never really have a consistent schedule.
Mm-hmm.
You're always taking shifts, right? So, I mean, when as a NAVCOM, I work in the CCR, the Communications Control Room, and sometimes I never even see the daylight.
Right. Yeah.
It depends on what shift that you have, because it's a job that's 24 hours. But when you have an overnight shift and you're like exhausted in the daytime, when you have that time for yourself, it's like the last thing that you want to do, right? Last thing you want to do is to go on a bike or go running on the treadmill or working out in the gym that they have on ship. But I really encourage people to go for it and just do it. Even if it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes of movement, it will really do your body and mind well. And I really force myself to do that because I think exercise is so important. And it's not only for your health, but for your mental well-being as well. And, after some movement, we're more awake, and it also improves our job performance as well, right? So yeah, I really force myself to do it, even though like I don't want to, the ship's like going.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Our sea state, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I
remember the first time I was trying to run on the treadmill, I almost threw up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's like, there's not much space in there, depending on, it's like the CPFs are getting a little bit better with making space for a little workout room, but the MCDVs, you definitely have to get creative with what you do for your workouts, for sure.
When you're by yourself too, when you have that time by yourself, it's, you don't want to do it by yourself. So if nobody has that kind of energy, I really just, sometimes I ask like somebody else to do it with me, and that can really give me that encouragement to go. Like to keep going.
For sure, yeah. And having someone else to be accountable to, especially if you're sort of following like a similar program. If it's just you, you're kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I can skip it. But if you know that someone else is depending on you, it just makes it that much harder to back out. So my next question is, because obviously I know you are super busy, you've been in school, you've been a high-level athlete, you're in the military. What is your advice for time management for people who might be juggling a number of different activities?
My time management. Oh man. That is a question that a lot of people ask me. Young adults ask me how I juggle work and how I juggle studying and training and also living a personal life. And I always tell them that, people never know how much they are capable of until they do it. Mm-hmm. You will always find a way to make things possible. And, even if you really can't, then at least you know that you really tried, right? Like, try at least to do all the things rather than, thinking, oh, if I do this, like, I don't know if I can do this, or what if I add this onto my schedule? Like, I don't know, like, there's always questions, right? There's always a what if, but I always encourage people just to do it and just to try it, right? And in the end, if they can, then they can do it. If they can't, then you know that you tried. So for me, that's why I love not setting like a specific limit or a specific goal for me, because I can constantly learn how to time manage like my day. I can constantly learn, and I can constantly do better. So like my life has always been go, go, go. But
right. To a certain point now, you must be sort of used to that and accustomed to that now. It's just like it's your normal. Yeah.
Yeah, but I really believe that nobody can really stop learning. So like I really encourage people to just keep going and keep like learning new things and keeping busy. That's the best
for sure.
way to make your mind keep going, right?
And even to take an inventory of your day. I mean, I've heard people say before that they don't have time to do certain things, but then they're playing video games or they've watched whatever new Netflix series is on. So, I think if you really take that hard look, like, okay, maybe you've got to get up half an hour earlier to fit in a quick workout before work or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But like you said, I mean, you've got to try it and then be surprised at what you
at
can
least once
do. Yeah. Yeah. For your Taekwondo and being, an elite athlete, do you follow a meal plan? Like, do you meal prep? Do you have certain macros that you have to hit, or do you just eat healthy?
Honestly, I don't have a specific diet. I generally try to eat healthy, and I have my daily recommended food groups. As a high performance athlete, having a lot of intense training, I do burn a lot of calories, but it's just gaining those back with the proper types of food rather than, processed or high sugar content kind of food. But, like I'm a human being too. Sometimes I love some junk food.
What's your favorite junk food to indulge in?
Oh man, my favorite junk food. Gosh. Ice cream. I love ice cream.
I'm with you on that one. That would be mine as well.
Yeah.
So another thing I wanted to discuss, which is probably maybe right up your alley with the psychology degree, is a bit of like the mental side of things. So do you have any rituals like right before an important match? Do you use visualization? Do you even get nervous anymore?
Right. That is also a very popular question that I get asked. As for rituals, I personally don't like to have rituals because I think that if you do have a ritual, then, what if one day you aren't able to do that one thing? Like, I don't want to be able to blame my loss or anything bad that happened because of that, So
right. Then you might have, it'll get in your head already. And then you would think like, oh, I wasn't able to do this. I'm not going to do well. And then you've already sort of hindered yourself in that
exactly sense. Yeah, exactly. So that is why I don't really like to have certain rituals, but everybody gets nervous, believe me, and if you don't, then you're probably a robot. Even high elite athletes, like I still get nervous before a very important fight, before a nationals, any fight, I am still nervous. But what I do is first acknowledge that I am nervous, because something that my sister told me before that really stuck to me was that there are two people in a fight, right? And both people are nervous, whether you think they are or not. Both people are nervous, and the one person who can learn to control those nerves is the one that will have the advantage. And so when she told me that, I was like, you know what, that is true. That is so true. Like, two people are in a fight. You think that you're the only one that's nervous. No way, right? Yeah. So that really made me realize that, it's okay to be nervous, but I just need to learn how to control the nerves.
Yeah, exactly. I think the mental game is huge, and performance athletically, or even if you do anything that's like a high risk situation in the military, that sort of thing as well.
Yeah.
I think that mental training is huge. And so how do you bounce back mentally after a loss? Because I know, some people have so much trouble if they lose, or if they fail, then they tend to dwell on it for so long.
Nobody likes to lose. When I was younger, I used to cry after losing a match. I was very emotional, and I still am a very emotional person. But, as the years went by, I became a more mature athlete, and I know that crying does not turn back time, and crying, it does not make me the champion. I still lost, right?
Yeah.
But it is okay to cry. Sometimes I still do, but as long as I know that I gave it my all, I'm okay with that. And the thing to do after a match right now is to really sit down and think back and reevaluate what happened. It's the same thing, even if I won or I lost, right? I always do the same thing. There's always something to learn, whether it was a win or a loss. And the same thing applies in life as well, right? If you're in a situation, something bad happens, think back to it. What could you have done if something went well? What did you do that went well, right? It's always good to reevaluate everything.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, that's really big what you said on, if you gave it your all, then there's nothing else that you could have done, so it goes like that saying, you either win or you learn. So, I think that you can learn both ways, but definitely losing sometimes can be a really big learning experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
So recently you competed at the World Military Games in Wuhan, China,
Right.
which was the source of the COVID outbreak. So when you were there,
Right.
like, did you see anything that was going on? Was there anything ominous, or was it just not even, the virus wasn't even there yet?
Oh, man, honestly, like when we were there, it was like we were in the athletes village, right? We didn't like we weren't allowed to go until we like finished our competition, but
Oh, okay.
we're actually very far from the city. Like they built this completely new athlete village, and it was very secluded from the general public. They actually built a new railway system. Like there was one that only led to this village, and it went directly to the city if you wanted to go, and it was quite far. And no one from the city was actually allowed to go into the athlete village because we all had our accreditation that led us through the gates. Yeah.
So wow, so they really had it like locked down. It's almost like the Olympics, where they just build everything like specifically for the Olympics, and it's
yeah.
far removed.
Like the
from
World
everything.
Military Games were it's like an Olympic Games for the military teams.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to see, because I was looking it up, and I saw that was actually the first year that they had women's boxing for the military games. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I know, right?
I'll have to start a campaign to get boxing in the CF.
Yeah, I know. We don't have a boxing team, right?
Yeah, no, I think they're well, although now they're starting to get into the grappling a little more, but I think the boxing with the concussions and that sort of thing, the CF might be a little risk to that.
Yeah,
which is another thing. So in a Taekwondo match, so I was watching some of your videos on YouTube, and I think I pulled my groin a bit watching some of the head kicks. So you don't do any punches, is that correct? It's just kicks, or is it you can't punch to the head?
Punches.
Okay.
No, we can't punch to the face or to the head, but we can kick to the face.
Okay.
We can punch to the body only. So the only places that you can score are the chest guard and the head.
Okay. And is that, they have electronic chest guards? Is that what
they do? Yes.
They use to score? Okay.
The electronic chest guard that we used was Dado in Wuhan there.
Okay, yeah, because I was watching some videos and it looked like you're making contact, but they're like, oh, that one didn't score.
Yeah.
So you have to hit hard, I guess, for it to register?
Well, the Taekwondo has changed a lot. Since when was it? The first time that they introduced electronic scoring. We've used many different types of electronic systems, and it completely changed the sport when it first started, and then they just kept changing and updating or changing the system every time that and changing the rules every time that we fought the competition, because the electronic system really took out the martial arts aspect of the game. Like people, they were getting people with like longer legs, longer reach, just to touch the chest guard, and they scored without even actually showing them or doing a proper martial arts kick. So after games where people scored, like it was very ugly, like the kicks that they were doing, they said that we weren't allowed to do these certain kind of kicks anymore. So the rules just kept changing, and it was very frustrating for athletes who were training back then. So a lot of the athletes kind of quit because
I mean, you would think that like, okay, if we use this electronic thing, that'll kind of take the subjectivity out of it, but then where it doesn't register them all the same, then that kind of defeats the purpose. So
yeah, I know.
That would be frustrating.
It was very frustrating, but actually one of my good friends, he has the business, the electronic chest guard 2020 armor that has brought back the martial arts aspect of Taekwondo. So it's based on power, and like stronger you kick on the person, the more health that they'll lose on the system. So it's kind of like
seen that on your Instagram.
Yeah, we were actually on Dragon's Den.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it was kind of like the Street Fighter kind of
like in real life.
Yeah. So it really brought back kind of more the martial arts aspect of it, so yeah.
Have you ever gotten a concussion or really serious injuries from, like, say, being kicked in the head?
In Taekwondo, no, I haven't. I've got a lot of other injuries, but not concussions to the head. We have helmets, but we don't. I think because we don't use our hands and like punches into the face. We don't have a lot of concussions right now. And with the scoring system to the helmet, you don't really need to kick that hard to get the score. Yeah, so it's much easier to get a headshot without knocking somebody out.
Okay, yeah. So would that be very uncommon that someone would get knocked out?
These days, yes. With the system now, yes.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Yeah, I had an amateur boxing fight last year, and that was my first, it was an exhibition match. I definitely took some good headshots on that. I don't know if I really want to continue this, but yeah. So that's what I was wondering when I saw some of those kicks to the head there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all right. I guess I only have like a few more questions. Are you a big reader? Do you have any specific books that you read to help you with any of the mental game?
Yeah. Well, actually, the book I'm reading right now is called The Champion's Mind.
I think
it was actually, it's actually, you can get it on Amazon. It was recommended to me by a fellow trainer, and I'm only a quarter through reading from it, but it really tells you all the experiences and the things that some athletes go through. And there's one thing that I read that really kind of stuck with me. If you don't mind, I'm going to read a little part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So it says, peak performance and a pile of sand. That's the title of this section. And it says, achieving peak performance in sports is like trying to keep a small pile of sand from slipping from your grip. If you hold it too tightly, the sand will be squeezed out from your between your fingers. Likewise, if you hold it too loosely, the sand will slip through your grip. Holding the sand too tightly is caring too much about the outcome and trying too hard to achieve the result. But holding it too loosely is akin to caring too little and not being mentally disciplined. Most athletes would benefit from caring enough, but not caring too much about the outcome in major competitions, so that they can let their talent be natural and unrestrained. He who grasps loses. So this thing kind of spoke to me. It was kind of like the, feeling nervous. If you're too nervous, that's not good. But if you're not nervous at all, that's not good either. But it's a thing of like controlling it, right? So if the sand is in your hand, you learn how to control it in your hand, kind of thing. And same with your mind, with your nerves. If you know how to control it, you will succeed.
That's a really good passage there. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to read that one. I read another really good one called Mind Gym a while back.
Mind Gym.
The guy coaches a bunch of NFL and pro baseball athletes and stuff on their mental games. It's like a very quick read, but it was good.
Right, I'll definitely take a look into that.
And my last question is, what would your advice be to a woman who's thinking of joining the military or just starting her military career?
It's being in a society that's like male dominant, even for me in a sport that's male dominant, don't be afraid. That's all I can say. Don't be afraid to do your best. Me being in the military, I was kind of scared at first, in the sport of Taekwondo when it was male dominant. I was always scared, but my mom always told me, don't be afraid of what others think. Just do what you think is right and do your best. Don't be afraid of anything. You can always learn. People will always learn from you. Gosh, this is so.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's great advice, and your mom has good advice too. I'd say that's spot on.
It was when was it? It wasn't until 1985 that they allowed women to serve in the armed forces.
Yeah, I think that was when they allowed them to serve in all trades.
Right, yeah, that was only 35 years ago. Yeah, I'm 30 years old right now. Right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. And there's still some countries where if you can't serve in the combat arms if you're a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say, Canada is ahead in that sense, but
Yeah, I'm so proud
still
of
a
that.
ways to go. But I mean, but yeah, that whole don't be afraid idea is like, just go for it. Like whatever you
Yeah,
want to
just go
do.
for it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much. This was an awesome interview. So good luck in all your future Taekwondo and military endeavors. And maybe I'll see you on ship someday.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm super honored, and good luck to you.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to stay up to date with the latest episodes, please hit the subscribe button.